some of the heaviest on the streets, but there are probably about a dozen Robin Hooders who are active to some extent or another, and we literally have every day of the week covered. This has really upset the people calling themselves the City of Keene because they're out, like $20,000 or something ridiculous like that. They're really hurting quite a bit financially. So, you look at something like that, like Robin Hooding, and it seems unassailable. You're doing something really nice for people. You're helping make somebody's day rather than the government ruining someone's day. You're depriving the city of money. You're keeping money in people's pockets. This is a feel-good, in my opinion, the most positive, successful thing that has been done in the Keene area and maybe even across all of New Hampshire because it's just so well received. Most people do appreciate it. In fact, Robin Hood receives donations, receive checks, receive PayPal. I mean, there's people that will send money. Some people will bring us rolled nickels. There's a guy from Vermont who comes all the way over and brings just rolls and rolls of nickels and just gives them to us. So there's clearly a lot of affinity for this idea, but yet there are haters. Yet there are, on the other side, are this group of, a relatively small group of people who some are willing to physically attack you for doing this. Others are threatening you, willing to get up in your face and yell at you and call you names. And so it's just amazing that it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how unassailable and good something is. Derek, you mentioned Shire Sharing. Shire Sharing, Amanda Bolden and a crew of dozens of Free Staters put together meals for people every Thanksgiving, at their own cost, and the amount of meals that they've done, I think it's going on 3 years now, it's doubled. They're in the hundreds and hundreds of meals that they're doing. You look at that and you think, this is unassailable. You're helping poor people. You're helping people that are in desperate need of sustenance. But no, the critics come out and they'll say, oh, well, you're not feeding people 365 days of the year, you Free Staters. How are you going to get anything done without the government around? So I guess what are some interactions with the critics that you've had? How ridiculous are they? And can anything be done about it? Whoever wants to start.
And I'd like to point out too, I mean, even when it's like one of the, we're always taking flag and Keene, like, why don't you guys use the system? Why don't you use the proper channels to try to change the system? And it's like, okay, we're going to do that now. So we go to the school board meeting, and then they're complaining like, oh, you guys are wasting all of our time, and blah blah blah. And you can't win with these people. I mean, you could do practically anything. You could be picking up trash, and they'll find something to criticize you. And one thing, the haters, I mean, I never see them doing anything. They had one protest in the square, and that's it.
They had two. We missed one.
Okay, they had two. I mean, they're not out there. I think I'm trying to change the world, make it a better place to live in ways that I want to, and I don't see them doing anything like that. One thing I suggested to them was, like, they're like, oh, is there anything we can agree on? Is there anything we can all do, together? And I was like, yeah, I'd like to donate blood. Let's go do that. And no one took me up on it. Or let's go pick up trash. They don't want to do anything. They just want to sit back and critique you. Like, you are doing it wrong, and I don't want to put any effort into it, but I want to tell you how you're doing it wrong. And I guess my point is, you cannot win. You go to the school board meeting, you run for elections, they're going to criticize you. I think Ian, he's been running in Keene elections and those kind of things for a long time, and people still, I think one person posted something that he had written on Facebook in a local coffee store, Ian was like, I don't like the state or whatever, that was the message. And Ian's like, thanks for posting it, thanks for sharing my opinion with more people, but I guess you can't win with these people. And one of the classic things I always think about, I don't know if you guys have seen that crossing guard in Keene that kind of basically attacked Derek. I mean, people still talk about that. Like, oh, you guys bother the crossing guards. And there's so many rumors, I've had people tell me, oh, Free Staters stand in front of ambulances. You know, when did this happen? I asked them. And it's just like a rumor that they heard, and you know, I think it was like a local that did it once, and you know, he wasn't really a Free Stater, but oh well. Anything to add?
Yeah. On the topic of critics, Dan Berman stands out. He's the pastor. Dave Berman. He's the pastor. You know, I haven't been in Keene while this has been happening, but I've been following along on YouTube because Garret does a lot of great uploading about this pastor was very upset about the Robin Hooders and what they're doing, especially because they have cameras. It wasn't that they were feeding the meters. It was, I think, the part he was offended by was that they film what they're doing. I think this is a great way to stay accountable, you know, to your critics, to people who are like, oh, you're being bad. Well, it's like, no, you can watch all the raw footage, my whole day. I filmed myself. I'm my own surveillance man, and if you think I did anything wrong, point it out. So good on you for having so much raw footage to draw from. But this guy hates that. He thinks it's invasive to be filming public employees, and he went with his phone and was trying to get all up in everyone's face while they're doing Robin Hooding, saying like, "Oh, do you like this?" You know, giving them a taste of their own medicine. Well, Garret took this and turned it around and made his own media, producing comedy videos of this guy, retooling the words that he said, and making it a win by making it entertaining and just saying like, okay, you've given me a new subject to work with, thank you. So critics can be a positive.
Before you leave that subject, may I make a comment?
Sure. Last of Mike, so you can hear it.
Have you thought of several of you people who this pastor knows going to his service on Sunday, sitting in the front row and attending his service?
Yeah, it's been discussed.
Okay.
Do you mind if I jump in for a minute? I have a little insight on this. Yeah. So I don't know. You guys have interacted with Pastor Berman more recently than I have, and you may know some things about it that I don't. But when I first moved, I'm Baron. For those of you who don't know me, I'd like to point out that I've been in Keene longer than the rest of these guys have. But anyways, when I first moved to New Hampshire, I went to Pastor Berman's church, and I think you can probably deduce some things about him just from his interactions with you. But I observed them in a totally different light, having been, the suggestion here to go to his service. Well, I've been to his church as an attendee, and ultimately decided not to settle there as kind of my home church. So one of the reasons for that is that his political insights came out fairly freely in his preaching from the pulpit. I've observed that subsequently through many things he's written. I don't know if you've read in the Shopper and elsewhere. He writes commentary from time to time. So you have to take a little bit of a grain of salt of who are the critics and what is their innate bias and what are they saying about you. And I don't know if it's the filming per se. I really don't think that's it. Although I suppose it could be. But I think he has an ideology that somehow is threatened. And if you could put your finger on that, I know he's a Republican, a staunch Republican, and frankly, he's a statist. And I don't mean that as an insult. I don't think he's the devil or anything like that. Not my style. But if you can put your finger on that objection that he has, that might provide an opportunity to have an actual, real conversation. And so going to his church may be a good idea, but videoing from the front row.
Thanks, Vern. So, going back to the topic, the critics' further comments.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to point out, I think Derek touched on it. I don't feel I'm doing anything wrong. Please come film me. Help me get out what I'm doing. One of the things that kind of bothered me about the whole Robin Hooding thing was, you guys did all these terrible things, and okay, well, why didn't you film them? Why didn't the parking officers film them? And the city hired the former police captain, his name is Sturdy, to come out there and video. He was walking around with us filming, and they basically shot, I don't know, like 40 hours of footage, and they used none of it. They had nothing. And they showed one video in court, and it was like a 20-minute video, and it's just like Graham and Garret walking around, and at one point there's some chalking on the ground, and the parking officer tells Graham, did you chalk that? It couldn't have been you because you can't spell well. So I mean, it's like, really, this is the one video that you guys are gonna. Well, they play another one too, but this is the one video that you're gonna pick to show. I mean, it was ridiculous, the whole thing. And actually, when Robin Hooding first started in 2013, initially the parking officers filmed very briefly. They would film the Robin Hooders, and they quit doing that. And I took that as a sign that they came to know us, they became more comfortable with us. We do have a relationship with these people. The parking officers, one in particular, she entrusted Garret enough where she issued an erroneous ticket, and she was leaving in her vehicle, and Garret pointed it out to her. She entrusted him to remove the ticket and give it to her, like to go over to the car and get it. So to me, that shows that we have they trust us, and they know. Like, one of the things that I think, if you watch the video where one of the officers is removing the Robin Hood cards and tearing them up, she says, one of the parking officers had accused us of removing the tickets, and I told her, I would never do that because to me it does more harm. My goal is to reduce the amount of harm being done by the tickets. If I remove the tickets, the fine goes up. Why would I do that? It doesn't make any sense. But I told her, I would never do that, and she said, "Oh, I know you wouldn't." And so, I wish more people would come out and film us, and I don't have a problem with it. I won't. At both parties, I wish the parking officers would record all the time. And, I don't understand why they don't. One of their job descriptions is something like they're going to conduct visual and audio surveillance for extended periods of time. I don't know what that means, but to me that means filming and audio recording. But anything to add to that? Yeah.
I'll play the devil's advocate here. I think what you guys are doing great. I agree 100%. You've had a lot more impact than I ever had trying to go through the system, trying to change stuff. But and surveillance and video, everything that you do is good so that you can show the detractors that you're not doing anything wrong. But what are you going to say to people who support the NSA or support the city putting up these spy cameras or putting them on the traffic lights so that they can give people tickets? What are you going to say to someone that's going to say, well, how is that any different than you videoing everything that you do?
This brings up a good point. There's many people that have privacy issues, and if they're out in public, they'll be upset if they're being filmed or documented in some way. And I understand that may have been a concern that people could have held for many years, for most of human history, but we're not in that period anymore. We're in a different age, and we're in an age where if you're outside, you can be documented both through audio, through video, and you might not be able to see these devices. Cameras are very small. Audio equipment is very small. Audio equipment and cameras have long ranges. So these are things we have to adapt to in the same way that I think it's easy for people to look at this technology as negative, the fact that someone can be seen from far away. But rather than being Luddites about it, I think we need to empower ourselves. Let's get good zoom lenses. Let's get good audio equipment. And let's be able to document objectively everything we can. Sure, people don't like the idea that the government is documenting them, but if someone else has evidence over you, they're free to manipulate it. Let's say the parking enforcers were the only people that ever took video of Robin Hood. They could have one cheesy little video that really wouldn't show anything, but they could make any claim they want to. Because the power is on our side with all of the documentation that we have, we were the ones that brought the facts to the table, and the city brought nothing. So in the same way with firearms, I think it's not a good thing that the government has guns, but it's a good equalizer that everyone else can too. So I think the same exact thing with any sort of audio or video technology. We're in a post-privacy age in public. If you're out in public, you have to have the expectation that anything could be documented, whether it's by a friendly or an opposing force.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that, like Garret was harping on there, the reality is a police officer could, be sitting in his car and watch you run through a red light. I guess in theory the city could, I know I've captured people jaywalking on video, you know, not intentionally. I guess they could prosecute that person and issue him a ticket and do all that stuff. But to me, a police officer could be out there filming people and get the same result. And you know, I video record for 3 reasons. Number one, you know, I want people to know what I'm doing. I want to get my message out there. You know, number 2, if something interesting happens, you know, like I'm out there about accountability. Like if I saw someone beating someone else up, I'm going to film it. You know, I don't care who, you know, who it is. If someone is being the aggressor, you know, I'm going to film it. But and then I guess number 3, you know, videoing is for my protection. It's the only tool that I can really use. It's a peaceful method of defending myself from the state. I mean, there have been cases where I've had the police called on me, and ultimately nothing has happened. And I think part of that is because I'm running video. You know, if they do arrest me, well, I have the video to show my actions and, you know, prepare a case better than if I just have my words. So I think that there is definitely value in that. And I guess it is unfortunate, and I don't like the NSA. I don't like all the surveillance society, but I'm more disturbed by them accessing like a private phone call or reading my emails or things like that. I mean, like when Peter Thomas was out filming us, I really didn't have a problem with it. You know, I posted all his videos online, and you know, I'm joking around with him. I'm telling him he needs to cheer up, and I'm like dancing to him at one point, and I'm just having a good time. And you know, I don't really mind if I'm in public, someone films me, because I'm not doing anything wrong.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I really wanted to address your question directly. What's the difference between the NSA doing it and the Free Staters doing it? The Free Staters are not going to initiate violence against anyone because of their videos. The worst thing that will happen to somebody is they'll see themselves on YouTube, period. When the NSA does it, they've got guns, and they're going to aggress against you, and they're going to throw you in cages and possibly kill you. That's the difference, and I think it's really, really important to be clear about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, thanks, because
well
you know,
said, yeah.
detractors are going to say,
Yeah.
well, you know, the
A
Free
huge
Staters
difference.
will video everybody in public, so why are you against the government having